So imagine you're saving up for years,
Right.
right? You finally want to build a house or maybe start a business.
Right, a huge life milestone.
Exactly. But then you find out that just getting the piece of paper, like literally just the legal permit to break ground, is going to cost you over 5.5 times your annual salary.
Which is just, I mean, it's unfathomable for most people.
Yeah. And on top of that staggering cost,
Mm.
you have to spend over 2 months running this dusty manila folder through a maze of government offices.
Just compressing your fingers, it doesn't mysteriously disappear on somebody's desk.
Right. Yeah. That was the reality of real estate development in Africa's largest metropolis. Up until today, basically.
Yeah, it was a system that, well, it virtually guaranteed bottlenecking. I mean, when compliance is that expensive and that convoluted, you aren't just slowing down economic growth.
You're kind of forcing a shadow economy.
Exactly. You are actively incentivizing people to just build illegally.
And that is exactly what we are tearing into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. It is mid-April 2026, and our mission for you, the listener, is to unpack this massive system-shopping shift that's currently unfolding in Nigeria.
It's a really fascinating stack of sources we've got for this one.
Oh, totally. We've got academic journals from Quest, news reports, a legal breakdown from Shaman Law Firm, and multiple property blogs.
And we are going to synthesize all of this to understand a country that's just right in the middle of a profound transformation.
Yeah, because on one hand, we're looking at this incredibly aggressive push for tech-driven efficiency and regional integration.
But on the other hand, there are severe, almost crippling growing pains. We're talking massive labor shortages and some really highly charged political debates over the true cost of living.
It is a phenomenal case study. You're watching this mega economy trying to leapfrog decades of administrative decay by deploying cutting-edge tech.
While still dragging along some very heavy, very physical anchors from its past.
Right. And the absolute epicenter of this transformation, the core catalyst, just happened. As of April 1st, 2026, the Lagos state government officially outlawed the old, manual, paper-heavy way of processing building permits.
The physical dusty file is dead.
It is dead. The digital era is now legally mandated. But, to really grasp why they swung the hammer and banned manual permits entirely, we have to look at the sheer mechanics of how broken that old system was.
Oh, it was a mess.
Okay, let's unpack this. According to a 2014 World Bank study, which was heavily cited in that Quest Journals paper we looked at, dealing with a construction permit in Nigeria took an average of 14 separate procedures.
14 independent steps, meaning 14 different desks, 14 different approvals.
And 14 different opportunities for the whole thing to just stall.
Exactly, or be compromised. And it took 63 days on average.
But here's the stat that completely blew my mind. It cost a staggering 565.4% of the income per capita.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. 5.5 times the average annual income just to get the administrative green light. How did anyone build anything legally?
Well, the short answer is a lot of people just didn't.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of that 565%. That wasn't just official state fees.
Oh, right. It factors in the other stuff.
Right, that astronomical figure factors in the informal costs. The facilitation fees or bribes required to move that manila folder from desk A to desk B.
Wow.
The manual system functioned like an old corrupt toll booth. The operator could look at your paperwork, decide to hold it up indefinitely, and essentially charge whatever they wanted to lift the gate.
So it's like a chaotic relay race in the dark. Citizens were literally running these physical, dusty files from the zoning office to the fire department,
Paying informal fees at every single stop.
just hoping a permit would magically emerge at the finish line.
Precisely. And that brings us to the real why behind the April 1st mandate. Yes, moving online speeds things up, obviously. But fundamentally, this is a targeted anti-corruption measure. By forcing every single application online, they are removing those human toll booth operators.
Right. Taking the human element out of the transaction.
The state is eliminating the discretionary loopholes that allowed this massive, informal, and deeply unsafe construction ecosystem to thrive.
And they are bringing in some very heavy tech artillery to pull this off. Our sources show Lagos has fully transitioned to what they're calling the Electronic Physical Planning Process System.
Or EPPPS. Yeah.
Right, EPPPS. They've also deployed a specific database tool called Aumentum software. And the goal with Omentum is to securely manage all the land records and certificates of occupancy.
And the government's stated target here is to seamlessly manage all this data, hit 45,000 permits annually, and completely end the era of missing files.
It essentially replaces that corrupt toll booth with an easy pass system.
Exactly. An algorithm doesn't care who you know. And it doesn't ask for a favor.
Right, it just checks the boxes.
It simply checks if you meet the structural criteria, verifies the funds are in your account, and issues the approval. And every action leaves a permanent, auditable digital footprint.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, great, they made a website,
Right.
you might be wondering how an everyday citizen or like a major developer actually navigates this new engine. So let's look under the hood.
Yeah, let's walk through it.
Based on the guides from Chaiman Law Firm and Cable Plus Property, the process starts at a specific portal, logosep.com.ng. You register an account, and right out the gate, you pay a 10,000 Naira non-refundable screening fee.
And then you basically upload your life.
Yeah, literally. Your title documents, survey plans, architectural drawings, engineering schematics.
And crucially, your tax clearance.
Oh, right.
This is where the interconnectedness of a digital system becomes so powerful. In the past, the building department and the tax department rarely spoke to each other.
They were totally siloed.
Right. But now, the EPPPS system integrates directly with the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. If you or your company haven't paid your taxes...
You're just locked out.
Exactly. You are locked out of getting a building permit. The digital gate simply will not open.
Wow, so the state is using construction as leverage to enforce overall tax compliance. That is intense.
It's very smart, honestly.
Yeah. Now, assuming you upload everything and you are tax compliant, the standard time frame for this purely digital process is 21 to 30 days, with a statutory max of 28 days.
But there's a bypass, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you are a developer who's bleeding money while an empty lot just sits idle, there's a fast-track option. You can pay 5 times the normal assessment fee, and your permit is processed in just 10 days.
Which is an economically brilliant pressure release valve. Think about the mechanics of that fast-track option for a second.
Okay.
In the old system, a developer who needed a permit in 10 days would have just paid a massive bribe to a clerk to skip the line.
Right, the informal toll booth again.
Exactly. But now, the government has officially institutionalized that premium. They've taken the money that used to flow into corrupt, informal pockets
And redirected it directly into the state treasury.
as legitimate taxable revenue.
Yes.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though. You can have 0% human interaction to get this permit right. You upload the PDFs, the algorithm checks the boxes, you pay your fast-track fee, and you print your permit.
Right.
But does a website actually stop a building from falling down? I mean, structurally, we know building collapses have been a tragic systemic issue in Lagos.
Oh, absolutely.
A 3D render can look perfectly safe on a server, but if a contractor uses watered-down cement on the actual site, the building fails.
You're hitting on the exact vulnerability that the government recognized. A digital system is merely a gatekeeper.
Right, it only guarantees the design is legal.
Exactly. It cannot verify the physical reality of the concrete. And that's why EPPPS does not operate alone. To catch what the website can't see, Lagos introduced the Certified Accredited Program, or CAP. And this is a public-private partnership, right? How does that actually work on the ground?
Well, the government knows it simply lacks the manpower to physically inspect the thousands of active construction sites across the megacity every single day.
There's just too much building happening.
Way too much. So CAP brings in fully accredited private sector structural engineers and architects to monitor construction alongside the government agency.
Oh, okay. So when do they step in?
When a developer reaches a critical structural phase, like pouring the foundation or installing the roofing beams, they must pause and get a mandatory stage certification from these private professionals.
Ah, so it's a 1-2 punch. You use the efficiency of the digital EPPPS system to instantly clear the bureaucratic hurdles up front.
Right.
But you rely on decentralized private sector enforcement to maintain safety on the actual dirt.
Exactly. It's a really elegant solution to a massive logistical problem.
So EPPPS fixes the bureaucracy within the borders of Lagos, but Lagos doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Not at all.
A thriving Lagos relies on supply chains that stretch far beyond city limits. Which brings us to the next massive shift in our sources: regional integration.
This is huge.
Because this hyperlocal digital efficiency is sparking a broader, coordinated master plan. Just recently, the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, the NITP, held their inaugural Southwest Regional meeting.
And we really cannot overstate what a monumental shift in planning philosophy this represents. Historically, Nigerian states have operated completely independently. They were silos.
Right. Our sources show that Lagos, Ogun, and Oyo states are now actively working to integrate their physical planning. They're focusing on cross-border land use, creating unified waste management, expanding multimodal rail transport across state lines.
And leveraging Lagos as the primary food storage and distribution hub for the entire Southwest region.
But realistically, how does that practically work? If these states have historically operated in entirely different competing bureaucracies, how do you suddenly sync them up?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you really have to look at the economic gravity of Lagos. The borders between Lagos and Ogun State, for instance, are incredibly blurred.
Right. Geographically and economically, they kind of bleed into one another.
Completely. Hundreds of thousands of people sleep in Ogun State because it's cheaper, but they commute into Lagos to work.
Yeah.
So by coordinating their planning, these states are transforming the region into a single functional industrial and commercial unit.
So they're actively tearing down the invisible regulatory wall.
Exactly. Imagine a logistics company trying to build a massive warehouse right on the border. Under the old system, the zoning rules, the environmental standards, even the road widths might completely change the second a delivery truck crossed the state line.
Which is a nightmare for logistics.
It's a total nightmare. But now, a real estate developer in Ogun and a logistics company in Lagos will finally be playing by the exact same structural rules.
Oh, that makes sense. You can't build a massive industrial park in Ogun without the states jointly planning for the traffic that park will inevitably dump onto Lagos roads.
Integrated planning unlocks shared economic potential because the physical infrastructure finally connects purposefully.
Okay, so upgrading physical infrastructure through unified regional planning and these digital platforms sounds incredible. It sounds like a seamless utopian future.
It does on paper.
Right, on paper. But looking deeply through our sources, this aggressive modernization exposes a new, massive vulnerability. It brings us to the hidden cracks in the system.
Yeah, this is where it gets complicated.
Because you can standardize all the rules, but who is protecting all this new digital data? And what happens to the massive physical workforce that the old systems relied on?
This is exactly where the push for a high-tech future runs headfirst into the very physical reality of human capital.
It's a staggering collision. Let's look at the data side first. The Nigeria Data Protection Commission, the NDPC, just released numbers detailing a terrifying shortfall.
The numbers are wild.
Nigeria currently has over 500,000 data controllers. These are the hospitals, banks, and government entities like the new EPPPS portal that are actively collecting and managing digital information.
Right.
But there is a severe deficit in the workforce required to secure them. The country is short 480,000 data protection officers. Right now, there are only 10,000 certified DPOs in the entire nation.
Think about the terrifying implications of that deficit. Every time a citizen logs onto lagosep.com.ne to get a building permit, they are uploading their property title deeds, their personal tax clearance.
Their corporate financial records, sometimes biometric data.
Exactly. And if the person managing that specific database isn't certified in data protection protocols, that is identity theft and corporate espionage waiting to happen on a catastrophic scale.
It's like Lagos just built a multi-billion-dollar state-of-the-art digital fortress, put all of the citizens' most valuable assets inside, and then suddenly realized they are short hundreds of thousands of guards to man the walls.
That is precisely the risk. You cannot mandate a digital economy if you do not have the specialized human capital to defend it.
Right. And while the digital realm is begging for workers, the traditional analog sectors are undergoing massive foundational shifts of their own.
Oh, yeah.
For example, our sources highlight a major transition happening right now within UPANG, the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers.
Specifically, the Petroleum Tanker Drivers brand.
Exactly. They're in the middle of a major leadership change. Williams Apora is bowing out after an 8-year tenure, and Salomon Akane Oladidi is poised to take over the presidency on April 24th.
Now, a listener might ask, why does a leadership change in a tanker drivers union matter to a conversation about digital building permits?
Yeah, it seems disconnected at first.
But it matters because it perfectly illustrates the dual reality of Nigeria. The government is rapidly scaling a high-tech, cloud-based future in the administrative offices.
But the cloud isn't magic.
Exactly. The cloud is a physical server rack sitting in a building somewhere. And in Nigeria, keeping that server rack powered often relies entirely on the traditional labor force delivering literal fuel.
Wow, that connects perfectly back to the Quest Journal study, which noted that 55% of the district planning offices still rely on diesel generators just to function.
Right.
You can digitize a permit, you can mandate an algorithm, but you can't digitize the diesel needed to keep the lights on when the national power grid goes down.
And if the tanker drivers strike or if their leadership transition disrupts supply chains, the cloud goes dark.
The EPPPS portal crashes, and you're right back to square one.
The tension is incredibly palpable. You have a nation frantically scrambling to build high-tech human capital, trying to train those missing 480,000 data protection officers.
While simultaneously praying they can maintain absolute stability in the traditional heavy labor sectors.
Like the tanker drivers, yeah, whose physical sweat is required to sustain the digital infrastructure.
Which naturally brings us to the biggest question of all, the macro reality check. We've spent this deep dive analyzing high-level systemic fixes, ambitious regional master plans syncing up state borders, and massive deficits in the tech workforce.
But how do these top-down, optimistic government changes square with the everyday economic reality of the citizens?
Because right now, there is a fierce, data-driven debate happening at the very top of Nigerian politics.
And it is a deeply philosophical debate about how a nation actually defines and measures its own progress.
Exactly. And to be completely clear to you, the listener, we are not taking sides in this political debate. We are impartially laying out the arguments presented in our source material.
Right, because they perfectly encapsulate the friction echoing throughout the country right now.
So recently, President Bola Tinubu stated publicly that Nigerians should be grateful they aren't facing the severe economic hardships currently being seen in Kenya.
He largely attributed Nigeria's domestic economic shocks to unavoidable global events in the Middle East.
Right? The president's argument is fundamentally focused on maintaining relative stability in the face of massive, uncontrollable global inflation.
But the pushback from the opposition was immediate.
And it relied heavily on statistics. Opposition figure Peter Obi responded by citing a barrage of macroeconomic data to argue that Kenya actually vastly outperforms Nigeria when it comes to the standard of living.
Right. Obi pointed out that Kenya's poverty rate sits at 43%, while Nigeria's is at 63%.
He also cited that Kenya's life expectancy is 67 years, compared to Nigeria's 54 years.
And he noted that on the Global Human Development Index, the HDI Kenya ranks 143 out of 180 countries, while Nigeria sits further down at 164.
So what does this all mean? How do we reconcile these two vastly different pictures of the exact same country?
This raises an incredibly important question about the disconnect between systemic administrative reforms and the actual lived experience of the citizen.
Right, because the government is pointing to monumental structural achievements.
Yeah, fully automating the building permit process in a country's economic hub via EPPPS is an objectively massive leap forward in the ease of doing business. It kills corruption and speeds up development.
But the opposition is essentially looking at those poverty and life expectancy numbers and saying, well, you can't eat a digital building permit.
Exactly. The paradox is profound. Are we measuring national progress by the deployment of cutting-edge technology and regional integration?
Or are we measuring it by base human development indices?
Right. At the micro level, the government can proudly point to a developer securing a permit on their smartphone in 10 days.
But at the macro level, the opposition points out that the citizen holding that smartphone is statistically likely to live 13 fewer years than someone in Kenya.
Understanding both the macroeconomic struggles highlighted by Obi and the micro-level structural triumphs highlighted by the EPPPS rollout is really the only way to grasp the full, complex picture of Nigeria today.
It is a country operating on multiple timelines at once. So let's recap the journey we've taken you on today.
We started by exploring the death of the dusty file.
Right, the archaic paper-based building permits in Lagos that cost 565% of the average income and took months to process are officially outlawed as of April 1st, 2026.
And they've been replaced by the mandatory anti-corruption digital EPPPS platform and Omentum software.
We then explored how that local tech efficiency is sparking the Southwest region, specifically Lagos, Ogun, and Oyo states, to finally tear down their bureaucratic silos and integrate their physical planning.
They are standardizing rules across borders to unlock massive shared economic growth.
But We also illuminated the hidden cracks in the foundation, right? The staggering 480,000 person deficit in data protection officers needed to actually secure this new digital frontier.
And the delicate reliance on traditional labor sectors like the transitioning petroleum tanker drivers union to physically keep the servers running.
All of which sits against the backdrop of a stark, statistics-driven political debate over Nigeria's true standard of living.
Whether you are an international investor eyeing the streamlined Lagos real estate market, a tech professional observing the massive gap in cybersecurity jobs, or just a curious learner trying to understand global economics.
These shifts offer an absolute masterclass in the immense complexities of modernizing a mega economy.
It really does. It shows that progress is never just a straight line. It's a constant negotiation between the future and the past.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We started by talking about the nightmare of the old manual system, how it was essentially an extortionate toll booth that held up development.
Right.
And we've clearly established that digitizing these permits removes the corrupt human element and speeds up the city's evolution. But I want to leave you with this to ponder.
Okay.
As critical government services become increasingly automated, legally mandatory, and entirely internet-dependent, what happens to the millions of citizens who lack digital literacy or reliable connectivity?
That's a great question.
By eliminating the physical human-run offices in the name of progress, does this newfound highly praised efficiency accidentally build an invisible digital wall around legal property ownership? Just something to think about the next time you see a skyline evolving.